The massive Artaxian warship Eternal Glory hung in space like a predatory creature, its crystalline hull catching starlight in patterns that generations of less advanced species had learned to fear. On its command deck, Supreme Commander Vextal clicked his primary mandibles in what passed for amusement among his kind as he reviewed the message from Earth's United Defense Council. Your continued harvesting of resources from systems under human protection constitutes a direct violation of established treaties. Cease operations immediately or face severe consequences. Vextal's secondary arms twitched in what his subordinates recognized as barely contained derision. These humans, he announced to his bridge crew, still believe they can dictate terms to the Artaxian Empire. Show me the status of their research vessel. The holographic display shifted to show a small human ship, barely a quarter the size of the Eternal Glory. The vessel, designated HSV Hawking, had been observing Artaxian mining operations in the Proxima Centauri system for the past 3 days. Its presence was meant as a warning, but to Vextal it represented an opportunity. Let us educate these primitives on the proper order of things, Vextal declared. Target their vessel. No warnings, no communications. Let them learn what becomes of those who challenge the Empire. His weapons officer, a younger Artaxian named Kirsha, hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough for Vextal to notice. Supreme Commander, the humans have proven unpredictable in past encounters. Perhaps. Your concern is noted and dismissed. Vextal interrupted. The humans achieved faster than light travel barely 2 centuries ago. We have ruled the stars for millennia. Execute my orders. The Eternal Glory's weapon systems powered up, their crystalline matrices humming with enough energy to shatter a small moon. The human vessel, still maintaining its observation position, made no attempt to raise shields or power weapons. Their overconfidence, Vextal thought, would be their undoing. The first shot struck the Hawking directly amidships, its hull crumpling under the impact. The second and third shots were unnecessary, but Vextal ordered them anyway. The message had to be clear. The Artaxian Empire would not be questioned by upstart species who had barely left their gravity well. As the debris of the human vessel scattered across space, Vextal expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, an unfamiliar sensation crept through his nerve clusters, something approaching uncertainty. The humans had not attempted to evade, had not called for help, had not even raised shields. It was almost as if, Supreme Commander, his sensor officer called out, voice vibrating with sudden concern. I'm detecting unusual quantum signatures from the debris field. The patterns are artificial. Before Vextal could process this information, his communication officer's voice cut through the bridge. Multiple transmissions detected origin point Earth. They're being broadcast on all frequencies, both conventional and quantum. The holographic display flickered to life again, showing a human female in a military uniform. Her expression was not one of anger or fear, but something far more terrifying to those who knew humanity's history. Calm certainty. To the Artaxian Empire, you have destroyed an unarmed research vessel in direct violation of galactic law. Your actions have been recorded and verified by quantum observation posts throughout the sector. You were warned. You chose not to listen. Effective immediately, all Artaxian assets in human-controlled space are subject to immediate seizure. All trade agreements are suspended. All diplomatic relations are terminated. Vextal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of growing anxiety. They cannot enforce such demands. They lack the military strength, the technological. The human continued, cutting through his dismissal. You have operated under the assumption that humanity's rapid advancement in space travel indicated our technological infancy. This was a miscalculation. We have maintained a deliberate policy of appearing less capable than we are. A strategy you might have understood had you studied Earth's military history, rather than dismissing us as primitives. Throughout the sector, reports began flooding in. Artaxian mining operations suddenly found their equipment non-responsive, their systems locked out by previously undetected human cyber warfare suites. Trade ships discovered their navigation systems compromised, their quantum drives refusing to engage. Defense platforms went dark, their crystalline matrices redirected by phantom commands. "The vessel you destroyed was unmanned," the human explained, her voice carrying no hint of gloating or triumph. "It was a test, one you failed spectacularly. We needed to confirm your empire's response to a clear warning. You have demonstrated that you cannot be trusted to respect diplomatic boundaries or international law." Vextel's bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to understand how deeply their systems had been compromised. Reports from across Artaxian space painted an increasingly dire picture. Somehow, the humans had inserted quantum-encrypted backdoors into virtually every piece of technology the Empire had purchased or traded for in the last 50 years. "Your Empire has one standard galactic day to withdraw all forces from protected systems and present itself for censure before the Galactic Council. Failure to comply will result in the complete shutdown of your civilization's technological infrastructure. This is not a negotiation." As the transmission ended, Vextel realized with growing horror that the Eternal Glory's weapon systems were no longer responding to commands. Neither were the engines, or life support, or any system beyond basic survival functions. "Supreme Commander," Kirusha reported, mandibles trembling, "we're receiving similar reports from every Artaxian vessel in the sector. We're being held in place by our own technology." Vextel, Supreme Commander of the Artaxian Empire's most powerful warship, finally understood the human phrase he had once dismissed as primitive superstition. "Pride goeth before a fall." The humans hadn't needed to develop superior weapons or larger ships. They had simply waited, watched, and found the single thread that, when pulled, would unravel an empire's worth of assumptions about its own superiority. As emergency broadcasts flooded in from across Artaxian space, Vextel realized that this was only the beginning. The humans hadn't just prepared for this confrontation. They had orchestrated it, laying their trap with decades of patience. His empire had walked into it willingly, guided by their own arrogance. The price of that pride was about to become very clear indeed. The High Council chamber of the Artaxian Empire had never been so silent. 12 of the most powerful beings in known space sat motionless around the crystalline table, their usual proud postures notably absent. Before them, holographic displays showed the escalating disaster across their territory. First Counselor Zaxrith's voice cut through the silence. "In 6 hours, humans have effectively paralyzed 80% of our military capabilities without firing a single shot." Her outer carapace had dulled, a sign of extreme stress in their species. "How did we not see this coming?" Intelligence Director Mirkev activated a central display, showing a timeline of human technological advancement. "We made assumptions based on their rapid progression from planetary civilization to spacefaring species. We thought their quick advancement meant inexperience." The director's mandibles clicked in frustration. "We were wrong. They weren't rushing. They were preparing." Another display activated, showing human diplomatic records spanning the last 50 years. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, joint scientific ventures, all seemingly benign interactions that had helped establish humanity's image as an eager but unthreatening species. "Every piece of technology we sold them," Mirkev continued. "Every joint project we collaborated on. They were studying us, learning our weaknesses. When we thought we were profiting from their naive enthusiasm for trade, they were mapping our entire technological infrastructure." Supreme Commander Vextel, recently recalled from the Eternal Glory, shifted uncomfortably. "Our engineers report that the humans didn't just insert backdoors into our systems. They fundamentally altered how our quantum matrices process information. Every attempt to purge their influence triggers deeper layers of programming we didn't even know existed." A younger council member, Turlak, raised his primary appendages in confusion. "But our encryption, our security protocols are based on mathematical principles that have protected us for millennia. And therein lies our greatest failure," a new voice interjected. All heads turned to face elder scientist Venpor, her ancient frame barely visible beneath layers of ceremonial armor. We assumed our understanding of quantum mechanics was superior because it was older. We never considered that the humans might have discovered principles we had missed. She activated her own display, showing analysis of human quantum computing theories. Their mathematical models don't just account for standard quantum states, they incorporate what they call quantum entanglement cascades. It's elegant, beautiful, and completely beyond our current understanding. The council chamber erupted in agitated clicking as implications became clear. They hadn't just underestimated human technology, they had fundamentally misunderstood how advanced human science had become. There's more, Myrkov added grimly. We've detected increased activity in sectors we thought were empty. The humans didn't just prepare defensively. They've had hidden shipyards, research stations, and manufacturing facilities scattered throughout neutral space for decades. First Counselor Zaxrith's color patterns shifted to deep crimson, a sign of rage in their species. They played us perfectly. While we dismissed them as primitive upstarts, they were building an invisible network of power right under our sensory arrays. A priority alert flashed across all displays. New human ships were appearing across multiple sectors, emerging from what appeared to be artificially sustained quantum fields that had masked their presence. These weren't the simple vessels the Empire was familiar with. These ships bore marking indicating they belonged to something called Earth's Hidden Fleet. By the first egg, Vextal breathed. Those vessels, their design incorporates technology from dozens of species, not just our quantum matrices. They've adapted Zithra phase drives, Malorian shield harmonics, even Quantix energy distribution systems. While we were selling them primitive technology, elder scientist Venpor observed, they were reverse engineering everything they encountered, finding ways to make different alien technologies work together in ways none of us thought possible. Another council member activated a diplomatic channel, showing a recent message from Earth's United Defense Council. The human female's voice filled the chamber. Your empire has 6 hours remaining to comply with our terms. We trust you are using this time wisely. First Counselor Zaxrith's secondary arms twitched in barely contained fury. Can we fight back? There must be systems they haven't compromised, weapons they haven't accounted for. Myrkov's response was immediate and devastating. Fighting back would be suicide. We've discovered that human quantum infiltration goes deeper than just our military systems. They have access to our civilian infrastructure, our medical facilities, our agricultural controls. They could shut down our entire civilization with a single command. The council chamber fell silent again as the weight of their situation became clear. Generations of assumed superiority had led them to this moment. Their pride hadn't just blinded them. It had actively helped their supposed inferiors prepare for this very confrontation. We have no choice, elder scientist Venpor declared, her ancient voice carrying the weight of painful wisdom. We must comply with their demands and withdraw from protected space. But more importantly, we must reevaluate everything we thought we knew about humanity. As if to emphasize her point, another human vessel emerged from a quantum field directly above the Artaxian capital. Its design was unlike anything they had ever seen, a perfect fusion of a dozen different alien technologies, all working together in harmony. First Counselor Zaxrith's color patterns shifted to the deep blue of resignation. Send the withdrawal orders, and prepare our diplomatic course. We need to understand these humans better, not as primitives to be dismissed, but as equals who have thoroughly outmaneuvered us. As the council members began coordinating their empire's humbling retreat, none could shake the feeling that this was exactly how humanity had planned it. They hadn't just prepared for conflict, they had orchestrated every step of their own rise to power, hidden behind a mask of apparent primitiveness that now seemed laughably transparent in hindsight. The price of pride was indeed steep, and the Artaxian Empire was only beginning to understand just how thoroughly they had been outplayed. The Artaxian Military Archive, the vast crystalline structure housing millennia of tactical data, had never seen such frantic activity. Intelligence analysts worked through mountains of historical data, trying to pinpoint exactly when and how humanity had outmaneuvered them so completely. Intelligence Director Mirkev stood before a massive holographic display, watching as decades of human activity were recontextualized with devastating clarity. What had seemed like random diplomatic overtures, trade negotiations, and scientific exchanges now revealed themselves as precisely calculated moves in a game the Artaxians hadn't even known they were playing. "Show me the Proxima Centauri incident again," he commanded. The display shifted, showing the destruction of the human research vessel. But this time, the analysis included data that had been previously overlooked: quantum signature patterns, radiation emissions, and energy dispersal rates that told a very different story. "They wanted us to destroy that ship," a young analyst named Kexri observed, her mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "The quantum signatures, they're identical to ones we detected during joint military exercises 20 years ago. We thought they were sensor ghosts." Mirkev's color patterns shifted to deep green, a sign of dawning comprehension. They were testing our response protocols. Every joint exercise, every shared mission, every collaborative project. They were mapping our entire military doctrine. The display shifted again, showing a timeline of human technological advancement. But now, overlaid with newly discovered data, it revealed a pattern that sent shivers through every Artaxian present. Their progression wasn't rapid at all, Kexri continued, her voice trembling. They deliberately released technological developments in a sequence designed to make us underestimate them. When they seemed to struggle with quantum mechanics, they had already mastered it. When they appeared to barely understand crystalline computing, they were already beyond our level. Another analyst rushed in, his carapace pale with urgency. "Director, we've decoded more of the human diplomatic archives. You need to see this immediately." The display changed to show internal human communications dating back 50 years. The messages revealed a strategic doctrine that chilled Mirkev to his core: Operation Looking Glass. It was all planned, he whispered, reading through the documents. From the moment they achieved faster-than-light travel, they knew they would encounter advanced civilizations. Instead of rushing to catch up, they created a facade of technological inferiority, while secretly accelerating their development in hidden facilities. The documents detailed how humanity had approached each first contact with careful calculation. Every seemingly naive question, every apparent mistake in diplomatic protocol, every request for technological assistance, all were part of a carefully crafted image designed to make older species underestimate them. Here, Kexri pointed to a particular section. They called it technological camouflage. While showing us their primitive ships, they were building an entire hidden fleet using hybrid technology. They didn't just copy alien technology. They found ways to combine different species' innovations that none of us had considered possible. Mirkev's secondary arms twitched as he processed the implications. They turned our own pride against us. We were so convinced of our superiority that we never questioned why they seemed so eager to learn from us, so willing to trade for technology they supposedly couldn't understand. The display shifted again, showing the current deployment of human forces across the sector. What had previously appeared to be a scattered, disorganized collection of colonies and outposts now revealed itself as a carefully positioned strategic network. Their entire colonial expansion strategy, another analyst noted, was designed to establish key positions for this eventual confrontation. Every trade route they established, every mining operation they started, they were building a web that could completely contain our empire's expansion. A priority alert flashed across the display. New data was pouring in from deep space sensors, revealing more hidden human facilities emerging from quantum fields. Each installation represented decades of secret development, all waiting for this precise moment. "Director," Kexri's voice was barely a whisper, "we're detecting energy signatures from their hidden fleet that match theoretical models our scientists proposed centuries ago, models we abandoned as impossible." Mirkev's color patterns shifted to the deep blue of profound realization. They didn't just surpass us technologically. They explored paths of scientific development we never even considered. While we remained convinced of the supremacy of our established knowledge, they were breaking through barriers we thought immutable. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this confrontation. They had spent decades ensuring that when it came, they would have every possible advantage. Their apparent technological inferiority had been the perfect cover for what might be the most patient military strategy in galactic history. As if to underscore this revelation, another human vessel emerged from a quantum field nearby. Its design was unlike anything in the Artaxian archives, a seamless fusion of a dozen different species technologies, operating at efficiency levels that should have been impossible. "Send everything to the High Council," Myrkev ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of understanding. "They need to know that we haven't just underestimated humanity's current capabilities. We've fundamentally misunderstood their entire approach to technological advancement." As the data was transmitted, Myrkev couldn't shake the feeling that this revelation was exactly what humanity had planned for. They hadn't just outmaneuvered the Artaxian Empire militarily. They had orchestrated a complete reshaping of the galaxy's power structure, all while their targets remained blissfully unaware of their true capabilities. The price of pride wasn't just military defeat. It was the horrifying realization that everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy had been based on carefully crafted illusions, maintained by those they had dismissed as primitives. High Admiral Rectal stood on the bridge of the Invincible Dawn, the most powerful warship ever constructed by the Artaxian Empire. Around him, a fleet of 10,000 vessels stretched into the void. The combined might of 3 sector fleets, gathered for one desperate gambit. "This is madness," his second-in-command, Captain HFY, whispered. "If the humans have been hiding their true capabilities all this time, we have no choice," Rectal interrupted. "The High Council believes that a decisive show of force might convince the humans to negotiate. We still outnumber their known forces 10-1. The word known hung heavy in the recycled air of the bridge. Every hour brought new revelations about hidden human capabilities, each more disturbing than the last. But the Empire's pride demanded action. They could not simply surrender without at least one attempt to demonstrate their military might. The fleet's target was New Eden, humanity's largest colonial world outside their home system. Intelligence suggested it was lightly defended, protected by only a small flotilla of supposedly primitive ships. "All vessels report ready," HFY announced. "Quantum drive synchronization complete." Rectal's carapace shifted to the deep red of combat readiness. "Execute jump sequence. Let's show these humans that the Artaxian Empire still." He never finished the sentence. As one, every quantum drive in the fleet suddenly powered down. Emergency lights flashed across 10,000 ships as their primary systems went dark. A transmission cut through all communication channels. The same human female who had delivered their previous warnings appeared on every screen. "Admiral Rectal, your attack fleet has entered Quarantine Zone Alpha 7. All quantum drives have been temporarily disabled by automated defense systems. Please stand by for demonstration." The void ahead of them shimmered. What had appeared to be empty space revealed itself as an enormous quantum field, dissipating to reveal something that defied comprehension. "By the first egg," HFY breathed. A human fleet emerged from the quantum veil, not the small defensive force they had expected, but thousands of ships of completely alien design. Each vessel was a unique fusion of technologies, combining engineering principles from dozens of species in ways that should have been impossible. "Your intelligence about New Eden's defenses was correct," the human announced. "The colony is indeed protected by a small flotilla. What you're seeing now is Earth's first strike fleet. We've been waiting here for 3 days, ever since our predictive models indicated this would be your chosen target." Rectal's secondary arms twitched violently. "Impossible. Our attack plans were only finalized 6 hours ago. Your tactical algorithms have been compromised for decades, Admiral. We knew your response patterns better than you did. This entire confrontation has been orchestrated since before you dismissed our first diplomatic overtures 50 years ago. The human ships moved with impossible grace, their drives operating on principles that made a mockery of known physics. They didn't just bypass our Taxian shields. They operated in ways that suggested they understood the underlying quantum mechanics better than the species that had invented them. This demonstration serves two purposes, the human continued. First, to show you exactly how outmatched you are. Second, to help you understand why resistance is not only futile but unnecessary. A single human vessel, smaller than the rest, moved forward. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, adapting and changing as they watched. What you're seeing is the culmination of what we call convergence engineering. While your empire remained convinced of the superiority of your own technology, we studied everything. Every species' unique approach to physics, every different path of technological evolution. We found ways to make them all work together. The demonstration that followed would be seared into our Taxian military records forever. The human ships didn't just defeat their attackers, they rendered them completely impotent. Weapons were turned off remotely. Shields harmonized to wrong frequencies. Quantum matrices rewrote themselves with new programming. Admiral, HFY reported, his voice shaking, we're detecting similar fleets emerging throughout our Taxian space. They've been hidden in quantum fields all along, watching, waiting. 50 years, Rectal whispered. They spent 50 years preparing for this moment. Every trade deal, every diplomatic mission, every joint military exercise. They were just gathering data, learning our weaknesses. The human's voice carried no triumph, only quiet certainty. Your empire's greatest weakness wasn't technological, Admiral. It was philosophical. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you never considered we might be allowing you to think you were ahead. Around them, the human fleet began systematically disabling our Taxian vessels. Not through destruction, but through complete technological domination. Systems were shut down. Weapons were rendered inert. 10,000 ships, the pride of the Empire, reduced to floating hulks by an enemy they had dismissed as primitives. The High Council has 1 hour to transmit their unconditional surrender, the human announced. After that, we begin implementing total technological quarantine. Every system, every colony, every piece of our Taxian technology will be shut down. We would prefer not to do this, Admiral. Despite what your empire believes, humanity does not seek dominance, only stability. As Rectal watched his mighty fleet being systematically neutralized, he finally understood. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them militarily. They had orchestrated the most patient, most comprehensive strategic victory in galactic history. And they had done it all while convincing their targets that they were the ones in control. The price of pride, indeed. The Great Hall of Reconciliation on Earth had never hosted such an assemblage. Representatives from every major galactic power watched as the Artaxian High Council prepared to sign the Treaty of Soul, a document that would fundamentally reshape the power structure of known space. First Counselor Zaxrith's carapace had faded to the pale blue of complete submission as she approached the signing platform. Behind her, holographic displays showed the current state of the Artaxian Empire. Every military vessel dormant, every weapons platform disabled, entire worlds operating on basic power only, all controlled by human quantum protocols that had been secretly embedded decades ago. Admiral Helena Chen, the same human who had delivered their warnings, stood at the center of the platform. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes carried the weight of 50 years of preparation. Before we proceed, she announced, Earth's United Defense Council believes it's important that everyone understands exactly how we reached this point, not to humble the Artaxian Empire, but to prevent similar conflicts in the future. The holographic displays shifted, showing a timeline that started with humanity's first faster-than-light flight. What had seemed like clumsy first steps into galactic society now revealed themselves as carefully calculated moves in an incomprehensibly patient strategy. Operation Looking Glass wasn't just about military preparation. Chen explained. It was about understanding. While your empire saw us as primitives to be exploited, we were studying everything. Not just your technology, but your psychology, your culture, your fundamental assumptions about how the universe worked. The displays showed hundreds of seemingly unrelated events. Trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, scientific collaborations, each one now revealed as a piece of a vast strategic puzzle. We discovered something remarkable, Chen continued. Every advanced species had become trapped by their own success. You all followed single lines of technological development, becoming convinced that your way was the only way. The Artaxians mastered quantum matrices but ignored biological computing. The Malorians perfected shield harmonics but never explored phase technology. First Counselor Zaxrith's mandibles clicked in sudden understanding. But you studied everything. Every different approach, every alternative path. Precisely. Chen nodded. We didn't just copy your technologies. We found ways to make them work together that none of you had considered possible. While you saw us struggling with basic quantum mechanics, we were actually exploring principles that your scientists had dismissed centuries ago. The displays showed human research facilities, hidden in quantum fields throughout the galaxy, each one dedicated to understanding and combining different species technologies in new ways. Your empire's fall wasn't just about military defeat, Chen explained. It was the inevitable result of technological stagnation bred by certainty. You were so convinced of your superiority that you stopped looking for alternatives. A new section of the treaty appeared on the displays, not terms of surrender, but a framework for technological and cultural exchange. This treaty isn't about punishment, Chen assured them. It's about integration. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to help break down the barriers between species, to combine our knowledge in ways that benefit everyone. The displays showed new designs, ships, stations, and technologies that combined the best aspects of every species' developments. Not human dominance, but true collaboration. Your empire will be transformed, Chen continued, but not destroyed. Your worlds will retain their autonomy, but under a new framework of cooperative development. We're not interested in creating a new hierarchy. We want to eliminate the very concept of species-based technological superiority. First Counselor Zaxrith's color patterns shifted slightly toward green, the first sign of hope she had shown in days. You could have simply destroyed us. Why offer this instead? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because that's the fundamental difference between our species, Counselor. You saw power as a means to dominate. We see it as a responsibility to elevate. Your empire's pride led you to dismiss other species as inferior. Our experiences taught us that every perspective has value. The treaty's final sections detail a complete restructuring of galactic society. Trade routes would be opened. Technology would be shared. The artificial barriers between species would be systematically dismantled. The age of singular empires is over, Chen declared. The future belongs to those willing to learn from everyone, to combine different ways of thinking into something greater than the sum of its parts. As First Counselor Zaxrith stepped forward to sign the treaty, she finally understood the true magnitude of humanity's victory. They hadn't just outmaneuvered the Artaxian Empire militarily. They had fundamentally changed how advanced civilizations would interact forever. The price of pride had been the old order itself, but from its ashes would rise something far more valuable. A galaxy where cooperation replaced competition, where different approaches to science and technology would be celebrated rather than dismissed. As the treaty was signed and the assembled representatives began to discuss implementation, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. 50 years of patience, of playing the primitive species, of carefully orchestrating this exact moment, all worth it for the chance to build something truly new. The age of empire was over. The age of integration had begun. And humanity, the supposedly primitive species that had orchestrated it all, would help guide the galaxy into this new era. not through force or dominance, but through the very thing that had allowed them to achieve this victory in the first place: the wisdom to learn from everyone, and the patience to play a very, very long game.